I want to welcome you to today's program. I'm excited to introduce John Armstrong. He is going to be our speaker today. And as many of you know, John has been in Greenville for a long time now, since 1982. And he was a pharmacist before he retired, and now he works on all sorts of different things. He loves doing research. You know, he's been researching a lot on local church history, his local church, which is the Wesley United Methodist Church. So that's what he's going to be talking about today. And I also want to thank this month's sponsors for helping us to put on the program, which is Gary Oxley and Jack Ammons. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to John.
Thanks, sis. Glad to be here. I was trying to prepare, and it's like, well, this is an I story rather than too much of a history story. But anyway, I'll try to bear with me on that part of it. Church history, it can be all kinds of things. It's an important thing that we remember that maybe others have served in their own capacities and that they inspire us to do likewise. There's different approaches to history. People like narratives, they make picture books, special areas, certain focuses, certain time periods, whatever I guess isn't in somebody's craw that they want to do and want to spend the time with it. I'm a computer hobbyist from '78. I got involved early on, got inspired by my aunt when she was doing the family tree stuff to learn how to use the computer to do data work. And that evolved gradually, like I say, bear with me folks, to the point that there was a magazine in 1979 that my article was the cover story, Tracing Your Family Tree. That's way back there. Anyways, a hobby was creating a database to deal with family tree stuff, mother, father, spouses, children, and so forth, and outputs from that. I kept doing that for a bunch of years. Eventually, I sold software. One of them was called Gen Systems. I happen to have a user manual still. Later, I had one that acronym is GCRAB for Genealogy, Compiling Roots and Branches. I did that for a good long while. That mostly kept me in hardware. Didn't make any money, which was helpful. So I learned as I went, and what you learned there was how you link records together. And that's the biggest thing today is on the internet, how much you can jump here and jump there, and it's all because of linkage. And I was trying to learn to do genealogy to link my number to my dad's number, and my dad's number to me. So it was very basic at that point in time. I was living in Alabama at the time, and my job ended, and I had free time. I took on a job of looking at the index. My home county in the Panhandle had created a 4-volume set on the history of the county. The Time to Purpose was what it was called. The first 2 volumes was about general history, area history, early family history, stuff like that. The last 2 volumes got into mostly family history. But you never could find too much in here because there was a rudimentary table of contents. There was quite a bit there. But those volumes linked to each other. The same family appeared in multiple places. So what I did over time, because I was unemployed, I worked on indexing that. And that's what these creatures were, what they called Bernoulli locks. It had to do with something with physics, but I forget what that meant. Anyway, these things went in the drive and stored them because there was nothing at that time that held much space. So eventually I moved to Texas, kept working on that, and I went up here to Wolf City and Henningsen Publishing, took what I'd created and printed a nice sewn book, very nice book, that brought together all 4 volumes and all his family. So it's turned out pretty neat, I thought. Anyway, they did a great job. I got involved with the Genealogy Society back there and got to come into the genealogy room at the library a lot. And there were always people coming in wanting to find something in the newspapers. Well, we had newspapers on microfilm, but you couldn't find a whole lot sometimes. And they'd be mistaken about what date and place it happened and spend a lot of time and not be very successful. So I got the idea, so, oh, we can make an index of obituaries, and that happened in 89 and 90. But so that was just a little token thing out of the newspaper was the obituaries. So it got expanded into let's do topics more than just obituaries. But it's linking an article and a topic and vice versa anyway. So that all evolved into something I called Herald, from the Greenville Herald Banner at the time. And that went on for a good long while. In '97, I got named co-historian of Wesley Church, got involved with the 150th anniversary, which really kind of turned into the 153rd when we knew more about it. So that went on like that, and we had a big celebration, lots of events, lots of guest preachers and all that stuff. So that kept working on that project with the newspaper index as well, same time. Long in 2000, early 2000, someone on the internet through chat said hello to me, and I started a connection, and next thing I know, this person's offering to take my DOS database and move me into Windows, which we know DOS is dead. And so anyway, we moved forward in time. Well, that was led to a lot of back and forth dealing to get that done. And we still make contact. It's been 21 plus years now later, and I got a happy holidays greeting from him through him on Skype yesterday. And Max is in Mykop, Russia. Bringing forward a little bit, hopefully. Last year, the assistant pastor at Wesley Church came to me because he had to do some kind of paper on church history for a seminary class. Well, I was like, okay, yeah, I got stuff, but I can't find what I got. I don't remember that sort of stuff, so I couldn't tell you a whole lot without digging. So that lent itself into, what do I have? Well, I had saved worship bulletins, one every week. I saved newsletters, which most weeks there's one. And I started doing that in '97. I have probably close to 95% of those things that were ever produced in the since 1997. So anyway, I thought, well, let me look at these. Well, there's a newsletter would have usually a pastor's column at the beginning, and they go into the weekly activities, and then they go into various things or meetings or events and all this stuff. And that basically what a newsletter was. Sometimes they mixed in joys and concerns and sympathies and all that sort of thing. The worship bulletin generally was an outline of worship, things that went on, how you started, opening song, who did the sermon, closing song, and all that kind of stuff. And then there might be a little bit of joys and concerns and so forth, and then they invariably would have activities of the week. So we had an activities week in the newsletter and an activities of the week in the worship bulletin. Well, the worship bulletin was easiest to deal with because it was nicely formatted. So that's where it started, doing data entry. So I started in the year, like right now, I'm working on 1999. I put in Word, working in a word processor, 1999, January 1, and then be the worship outline. And I created a template which was kind of like everything laid out without the specifics in it, not all of them. So I could paste that in, stick that, copy and paste it in, and then go modify, put in the right song, put in the right person did the preaching, all this stuff, so I didn't have to type it all. Did that. Same thing with the newsletter. I created a little short template that allowed me to put the label in and then carry on from there. So It's adding this in, and it's creating a chronological thing with events. Eventually, had to consolidate those events back into local events that occurred the same day. You know, Wednesday night had 4 choirs and whatever else, and all these men, so put them all together, but I put in the time they met too, which made for more work, but it's pretty indicative of the time period. So you bring that all together, so you end up creating this massive thing that is a chronology, which a lot of it doesn't read with a lot of interest. It's not a story, it's not a narrative. Every now and then there's some really good things in there because someone writes a nice column or someone submits something like that. But anyway, so that's how it's evolved into that. That's, I didn't show you that part of it. Anyway, this is kind of where I've ended up at this point. The church has been gracious in letting me print things without charge down there on black and white, but I paid for the binding of this. These are the temporary things. I'll let you look at them later if you like. But that was where I was some time ago, and I realized, well, there's a lot of stuff in there, but how do you find anything in there without reading through? You know, I mean, you can find Easter. You pretty much got where Easter was, and when school started, and when school got out, and so, you know, if you wanted things related to that. But I started creating an index, which Microsoft Word has a really neat feature if you fight with it enough to make an index. And so the basic process is decide where you're going to put your index in your Word file, and then you go in and start. And my habit was to go back, read through this thing I've already created, and see, okay, there's an item I want, like administrative board. Well, how am I going to categorize that? Well, I could have administrative board as a primary thing, but that's just, it's part of something else. You know, it could be its own primary level, but I opted for otherwise, that it put him under boards and committees. So do search and you can find all the administrative board or find the ones you want. And anyway, find where you want, you can do a add entry, reference add entry, and fix it primary, secondary, even tertiary levels, and create an entry. Then she said, "Okay, you're doing an administrative board." So I like what I got, so I copied all that off and do a search to the next, and then keep pasting. There's one, there's another until you're done. So it's kind of a tedious thing walking through this, and it gets to be kind of garbled up looking because it creates an area of text in braces, and it tends to be, the Word likes to think it's all misspelled, so it's going to put a red underline on it, and so it gets a lot of garbage. But then you can turn around and tell it to print, and you can see what it looks like. But every time you add an entry in like that, or a whole group of them, the index is not complete. So you go up to where you can put your index in. Once you get in that particular section, the reference field index thing will let you update index. You click the button that says update index. It brings it all together. It does away with multiple entries for the same item on the same page. It puts them in numeric order within the page, within the thing. So the trick is primarily to decide how you're going to break this thing up, like any index. You know, how you going to, what are your primary things, and what's the next level, or is everything a primary? That would be unmanageable, and it would be huge. You wouldn't consolidate much of anything that way. So anyway, that's where it's all come down to. So the index was the big change in making it useful. And as far as publication-wise, I have worked some preliminaries. Unfortunately, I keep looking at it and saying, well, that index thing isn't as best I want. You know, the index is not going to be the same in every volume. I'm doing 1 year at a time in these things, and these chronologies are usually between 60 and 125 pages for each year. So they've got kind of large, but I keep looking at them differently, and at some point, I'm going to just say I'm tired. I'm going to print this thing out, and and that's the final copy. One of the things I decided early on was, I've done so many of these printouts, that I decided to put the date it was printed at the bottom of every page. So this is 23 May, this one was produced in May. So, but that's what it is creating these things that can be saved, can be shared, and maybe somewhere they may end up on the internet. I haven't gotten to there yet. Anyway, that's what I'm about. These years, and like I say, I'm about halfway through 99 now on data entry. I'm going to guess they take between 8 and 10 days to do a year, and that's working 4 to 8 hours a day every day. So it's time consuming. The disappointment, I guess, is no one really cares. you know, maybe it's the wrong time frame, but there's not a whole lot of interest in these. That's about what I have as presentation-wise. It's kind of boring and it's kind of too much me, but that's what I've created.
Does anybody have any questions for John?
Jude, what is
Oh,
it?
how many can I ask? My main interest is your originals. Are you copying the original and then working off of that copy and preserving that very original in some way?
Part of what I skipped on the display table here, I have a few handouts here eventually. I have, when I started separating my things, all my years and stuff I collected, this is 1999 Wesley UMC Worship Bulletins. These are all the worship bulletins from that year that I've saved.
Oh, they're different too, aren't they?
This is my summary of what I've got. The check mark shows that I processed them. So I've got them through June 27th. So they're preserved. I'm not scanning them in. I don't have that capability. I don't have anywhere to store them other than with me. They are considered a...
But you're not working off of them either. Aren't you going to make a copy of each of those to work off of?
Here's the dates. January 5th, Tuesday. No parents' day out, no crafts, no enrichment class. No.
Okay.
I use a straight edge to keep my place and work down through these. Sometimes I do check marks on them to keep my place. But yeah, I work from the original.
And then on your index, when you're using, is it subject or subject and names, your index? And what is the reference?
It's not much oriented toward names, except for staff.
Okay.
That would be overwhelming
Uh-huh.
to go to that level. I mean, you get some active people to do that.
Uh-huh.
The other one, see, I basically have at least three folders for each year that I worked on. One is worship bulletins, one is newsletters, and one is miscellaneous. Sometimes the newsletters or whatever take more than one envelope. But these are the 99 newsletters,
Wow.
working from the original. So there's a pastor's words, a weekly activities and various things here, including memorials and so forth. Well, I put all that in there. Somewhat abbreviated from how it appeared, but you can go ahead and read that there's a memorial for Jim Coker. I don't put in who gave it, but I put for Jim Coker. A lot of us have known
I
Jim Coker.
understand now. Okay. I gotcha. I understand.
But this is my working thing for this particular newsletter. It's a little different looking than the other one, but
Yeah.
that's, everything evolves, you know, you get a new notion and you move on.
No. No, you
But
don't.
miscellaneous can be anything and everything. Here's a 99 administrative board. Here's a proposed budget. There's some Bible study listing. There's another administrative board, charge conference, you know, name it. One of the interesting things I ran across this morning looking at trying to pull things together was something that was in finance and from something else and something that come into my possession. And it was a sermon. pastor gave it January of 29th of 1989. It was 6.5 pages. Well, during the course of this, I've learned how to OCR text off of these bulletins, off of that sermon, convert it to text, and then, so that's why things have gotten big. If I take the pastor's column, which some are pretty wordy, and to get his words, and it's part of the index. And it's kind of telling, because they tell a lot of the story of what's going on, more so than just, January 2nd.
But you said that was 89, and I thought you started this in 97.
I got some really old stuff too.
Oh, how did you get a hold of that?
Well, I collected a lot back when we did the 150th anniversary.
Oh, okay.
I didn't bring an
Yeah.
example of all of that,
All right.
but I've got obituaries of former pastors. You go back far enough, the man that did the 89 sermon, I got his obituary in whatever year he died.
Okay.
So
All right.
there are different things like that.
Yeah.
So it's bringing it all together.
Do you think it's somebody's family history that they want to go back, or what is it? Events in those years that, when history is what you're writing about for later on, how many, is it, you're talking about, you said nobody's wanting to do it, or something, I don't know what statement you made.
Interest level.
Is it the interest level because it's not old enough history yet? Is it something that when it gets to be many years down the road, or somebody is looking for an obituary, how will we use it, is what I guess, how many different ways do you think we could?
Okay.
Probably, in some ways, it probably is too soon for anybody to be
That-
really interested.
That's what I was
But
thinking, that
if you
it's,
talk about the 97, what's that, 24 years ago?
Yeah.
I've even shared, early on, it's been 2 months or better, I shared some of this preliminary with 2 former pastors, one who's retired and one who's not. Never heard a word back from either one of them. So I don't know what
they
I don't know what to tell you.
don't want to go down in history.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I can just start to read through there and say, there's a song, and I want to start singing it to myself. That's what I think people will get later, is that's my era. That's what we did. This is, anyway.
Well, the list of the obituaries alone would help people that are involved in genealogy from their family back, would be so great. But
Well, this would only be the pastor and his family, so my focus on that, because I can't begin to get in that level. That's a different area in general obituaries. Like those that are served elsewhere, I think.
well, now you've also researched cemeteries, haven't you? Isn't that part of?
I've done a lot, particularly Forest Park, Tidwell, Jacobia,
Brigham.
Brigham, yes, Brigham. Anyway, and you know what amazes me in that realm, how active people are on. Maybe part to do with the COVID situation, but I get submissions every day, suggested corrections, or saying, I got one yesterday. So and so, it's my grandfather. Would you? They almost apologize. Would you do me the favor of transferring management of that to me? It's like, it's not my kin. I looked at it and said, well, it's about as complete as I can add anything. So I just slam it over and let them have it. But it's just amazing. Every day, literally every day, I have 1 to 6. Years ago, I did that sort of thing in Luling, Texas, on a mission trip. I went and took some pictures. I went and took pictures up in Marble City, Oklahoma, on another mission trip. I sneaked away, took cemetery grave marker. I still get responses from those people. Whoever posted, usually they don't want to take possession of them, but they've got more information to add. So yes, I've done a lot with that.
Well, I know I have a granddaughter that's very much doing research genealogy of our families back, and she's found some way, and I don't know how people do it, and like you're getting that there, but of finding pictures of a grave, of a monument, of in a cemetery in some other state, and that sort of things.
There's lots of people who do that sort of thing and share it without giving it much of a thought. You know, they just do it, and it's out there, and sometimes people are really thrilled that anybody bothered to do that.
Well, is there a dictionary, I mean, not a dictionary, but somewhere that you can look up those graves and that sort of thing?
There's a number of places. The primary one that exists now, in my knowledge, is called findagrave.com. It was an independent thing. One time it started out, there was a famous side of it and the rest of the side. And I don't know if it's all merged together or not, but it's been acquired by Ancestry. And Ancestry has made, so many improvements on the way it functioned. It's just made it much more valuable, so that you basically can do some genealogy, linkage from parents to children and spouses to spouses and all this sort of thing on there, and eventually they'll have more features there. But I use that every day. That's where I get my input on people wanting changes or want to take possession of a particular memorial. Anything else?
I think you like jobs with detail.
That would be fair, I think, Mary. That fits all of these things that I work on. There tend not to be little things done, but the way it goes. I thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you for being here with us today, John. It was a very interesting talk, and we'll be convening again next month. The speaker will be Sherry Davis, and she's from the planetarium. So I hope you'll join us then. And thank you so much for all being here.
Thank you.